Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going behind the scenes. We're going to be looking at a machine that you probably haven't thought much about, but plays a surprisingly huge role in our world.
It really does.
The AutoLabe Model 550S.
Wow.
This is the workhorse. This is the machine that makes sure that all those round products you see get their labels on straight.
Yeah.
Jars, bottles, cans. We've got excerpts from the user manual today.
Oh, cool.
Diagrams, illustrations.
Okay.
We even have the part list and electrical schematics.
Wow.
And we're going to decode it all today.
I'm excited.
By the end of this, you'll understand not just what this machine does, but why it's designed the way it is.
Yeah, it's one of those things you don't realize you need until you see it in action. I mean, imagine trying to hand label hundreds or even thousands of round bottles a day.
Oh my gosh.
You know, the Model 550S can handle that with speed and precision that would make a human labeler weep.
Okay, so it applies labels to round things quickly.
Uh,
What makes this particular machine so special?
the key here is the combination of speed and adaptability. You know, the Model 550S can label up to 40 feet of products per minute.
Wow.
But it's not just a brute force machine. It uses what are called stepper motors to control the movement of both the products and the label. Now, stepper motors are different from your typical motor because they move in very precise steps, kind of like a high-precision clock. This is what allows the machine to place labels with such incredible accuracy, even on products that aren't perfectly uniform.
So you avoid those wonky labels you sometimes see where it's slightly off-center?
Exactly. And that's crucial for a lot of reasons, not just aesthetics. You know, think about barcodes or those tamper-evident seals on medicine bottles.
Right.
They need to be placed perfectly every time.
That's a great point. So how do all the parts of this machine come together to achieve this level of precision?
Yeah.
Our sources include some diagrams. I'm seeing things like the base, the label applicator, and something called the upright assembly.
Right, let's break that down using figure 2, 3, 6, and 7 from the manual. Think of the base as the foundation. It houses all the control systems, the brains of the operation. This includes things like the PLC, which is essentially a specialized computer that controls the machine's actions, as well as the stepper motor drives, which regulate the precise movements of the motors we talked about earlier.
And then there's the pneumatic system, which, if my high school physics memory serves me right, means it uses compressed air to power some of the actions right.
You got it. Compressed air is often used in machinery because it's a very clean and reliable way to provide force. Now, the label applicator sits atop the upright assembly, which is like the backbone of the machine, is what holds the applicator in place and allows it to move up and down. The applicator itself is kind of like a robotic arm that grabs the labels and places them onto the products.
And finally, we have the product lift assembly. I'm guessing this is what actually positions the products for labeling.
Precisely. It lifts and rotates the product so that it's perfectly aligned with the label applicator. And here's a neat little detail that highlights the machine's flexibility. If you look at figure 4, you'll see the upright post can actually be rotated slightly.
Oh, interesting. What's the purpose of that?
That allows you to apply labels at a slight angle, which can be helpful for certain types of products or packaging designs. It's a small feature, but it speaks to the level of customization this machine offers.
So I've got the base with the brains, the upright assembly for support, the applicator for grabbing and placing, and the lift to position the product. I'm starting to get a mental image of how this all comes together, but can we walk through a typical labeling cycle step by step? I'm really curious to see how all these parts work in sync.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's use the operational description from our source material as a guide, and we'll connect it to the visual in figure 22, the pneumatic diagram.
All right, let's do this. I'm ready to see this machine in action, at least in our minds.
So picture this. You've got your round product ready to be labeled. The first step is to use that compressed air we were talking about. It powers a cylinder, which pushes the product lift assembly upwards. You can see this illustrated in figure 22 of the pneumatic diagram.
So it's like a little pneumatic elevator for the product.
Exactly. And once the product is lifted into position, it makes contact with the product drive assembly, which is essentially a spinning roller that's carefully calibrated to rotate the product smoothly.
Okay, so the product is now spinning, ready for its label close up. What happens next?
Now it's the label applicator's turn. It dispenses a label from the roll, and here's where things get really clever. There's a sensor that detects when a full label has been fed through this sensor, then sends a signal to the stepper motor that's controlling the product drive assembly, telling it to stop rotating at precisely the right moment.
So that's how it gets that perfect alignment. Every time it's not just slapping the label on, it's carefully coordinating the movement of both the product and the label.
You got it. And this smart label stop position, as they call it, is essential for ensuring consistent, high-quality labeling. It's like a perfectly choreographed dance between mechanics and electronics.
I'm amazed by how much thought goes into every step. We've talked a lot about precision, but what about customization? The manual mentions a feed wheel assembly and something called webbing.
Ah, yes. Let's flip to figure 13, which details the feed wheel assembly. This is the part of the machine that manages the roll of labels. What's really neat is the tensioning mechanism. You see, if the label roll isn't fed with just the right amount of tension, it can cause problems. The labels might tear, or they might not dispense smoothly. This tensioning mechanism ensures a consistent, controlled feed of labels.
That sounds crucial for preventing jams and wasted labels. I'm starting to understand why this machine is so popular in industries where efficiency is key. But what about webbing? I'm not quite picturing what that refers to.
Good question. Webbing is essentially the path the label takes from the roll to the product. It has to be carefully calibrated to make sure the label doesn't twist, wrinkle, or tear during the application process. Figures 23, 24, and 25 in the manual illustrate how this webbing can be adjusted depending on the type of label and product you're working with.
So it's not just about getting the label on the product, it's about getting it on perfectly and without any damage. It seems like there's a lot of attention to detail here.
Absolutely, and that attention to detail extends to the variety of labels the Model 550S can handle. You mentioned earlier those tamper-evident seals on medicine bottles. This machine can handle those with ease. But what about clear labels? Those can be tricky for some labeling systems to detect.
I wouldn't have even thought about that. How does it manage clear labels?
That's where the optional ultrasonic sensor comes in. You can see it in figure 11. Unlike standard sensors that rely on light to detect labels, an ultrasonic sensor uses sound waves. This allows it to see through clear labels and position them just as accurately as any other type of label.
That's brilliant. It's like they thought of everything. So we've covered the basic mechanics, the precision, the customization options. It seems almost too good to be true. Is there anything this machine can't do?
Well, like any piece of machinery, it does require proper setup and adjustment, but that's where its user-friendliness comes in.
Yeah.
The Model 550S is designed to be surprisingly easy to operate and fine-tune, even for someone who's not a mechanical whiz.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Let's dive into that aspect. How exactly is this machine so user-friendly? I'm picturing lots of complicated knobs and dials.
Not at all. It's actually quite intuitive. Take a look at this section on product lift adjustments in the manual, particularly figures 26, 27, and 28 that show how you can easily calibrate the machine for different product sizes.
So if I'm switching from labeling small jars to larger bottles, I can adjust the machine accordingly.
Yes, precisely. You can adjust the position of the wipe-down rollers, which are those little wheels that help guide the product as it's being labeled. This ensures that the product makes even contact with the product drive roller, which is essential for smooth, consistent label application.
It seems very straightforward. Are there any other features that contribute to its ease of use?
Absolutely. There's a clever little feature called the product stop block, shown in figure 30. It acts as a guide. When you're loading products onto the machine, think of it like a built-in ruler that helps you position the product consistently for optimal label placement. This is especially helpful for products with handles or unique shapes that might require a bit more attention to alignment.
I can see how that would be useful. It takes the guesswork out of loading the product, so it's easy to adjust for different sizes. And it has a guide for consistent positioning. Anything else that makes this machine stand out in terms of user experience?
Let me share a setup tip from the manual that really highlights the machine's flexibility. It's about adjusting the product rotation for optimal label adhesion. Sometimes you don't need a full rotation of the product to apply the label properly. The Model 550S can be fine-tuned to rotate the product just enough to get the label on straight and secure.
So in some cases, you could actually speed up the process by not doing a full rotation. That's incredibly clever. It's like they anticipated every possible scenario.
Exactly, and that attention to detail is what sets this machine apart. It's designed to be efficient, adaptable, and user-friendly, all while delivering that signature precision we've been talking about.
I have to admit, I'm really impressed. I wouldn't have thought a labeling machine could be so fascinating, but we haven't even touched on the electrical components and all the inner workings that make this possible. I'm curious to see what other gems we can find in the manual.
Let's do it. We can delve into the technical details section next. Don't worry. We'll keep it engaging, even for those who aren't electrical engineers. There's a lot to uncover there.
Okay, so let's take a peek under the hood. I'm looking at figure 17 in the manual, and it gives us a glimpse into the electrical components of the Model 550S. Figure 16 shows the rear panel with all the connections.
Right.
It's a bit like looking at a circuit board, a lot of wires and components that might seem intimidating at first glance.
Yeah, It is quite complex. You don't need to be an electrical engineer to appreciate what's going on here.
Right.
We can focus on a few key components that bring the whole system to life.
All right.
For example, remember the label sensor we talked about?
Yeah.
That little photoelectric marvel that tells the machine when a label has been dispensed? That's right here on the electrical diagram.
Oh, I see it. And then there are the stepper motor controllers, which, as you explained earlier, are what give the machine that incredible precision in moving both the product and the label.
Right.
It's amazing to think that all of this complex circuitry boils down to making sure a label ends up in exactly the right place.
It really is. It's a testament to how far both electrical engineering and mechanical design have come.
Yeah.
But even with the most well-designed systems, things can go wrong. That's why I appreciate that the user manual includes a whole section on troubleshooting.
It's like they're anticipating the head-scratching moments and giving us a roadmap to get back on track. Let's dive into a couple of those troubleshooting scenarios. What happens if the label hesitates during dispensing? That seems like it would be a common issue.
Yeah, good pick. The manual suggests a few things to check.
Okay.
First, take a look at the drive roller, the one that spins the product.
Okay.
It could be that adhesive buildup or dirt is causing the roller to slip. The manual even includes instructions on how to clean it properly.
So it's not always a major malfunction. Sometimes it's just a simple cleaning issue. What if the drive roller itself isn't operating at all?
Right.
That sounds a bit more serious.
The manual lays out a step-by-step process to diagnose the problem.
Okay.
The first thing you want to check is whether the drive roller turns freely. If it doesn't, it could be that the stepper motor is getting power, but there's an obstruction preventing it from rotating the roller.
I see. So you're ruling out the simplest explanations first. What if the roller does turn freely?
Then you move on to checking the stepper motor connections and the drive pulley to make sure everything is securely in place.
Right.
It's a logical process of elimination that guides you through each step.
It's really impressive how they've broken down these potentially complex troubleshooting steps into something that even a non-expert could follow.
It is.
And that brings us back to one of the key themes we've been discussing, user-friendliness.
Right.
The Model 550S is not just a powerful and precise machine, it's designed to be accessible and easy to maintain.
It is.
I have to say, my appreciation for labeling machines has grown exponentially during this deep dive. I started out thinking, how interesting can a machine that puts labels on things be? But the level of engineering, the attention to detail, the thought that's gone into every aspect, it's truly remarkable.
It really is. It's a perfect example of how even seemingly mundane tasks can be revolutionized through clever design and innovation. And if we connect this back to the bigger picture, the Model 550S is a microcosm of the larger trend of automation in manufacturing.
Right.
Machines like this are increasing efficiency, ensuring accuracy, and ultimately changing the way we produce and consume goods.
So what does this all mean for our listener who may never actually operate a Model 550S? I think it's about understanding the forces that shape our world, even the ones that operate behind the scenes. We take it for granted that products have labels, that those labels are applied consistently and accurately, but there's a whole world of engineering and innovation that makes that possible.
Precisely. And it raises an important question. Where else might we see this type of technology applied? We've focused on round products, but what about other shapes and sizes? What about labeling products in motion or in extreme environments? The possibilities are endless.
It's a reminder that innovation doesn't stop. There's always a new challenge to solve, a new way to apply technology to make things better, faster, more efficient.
Well said. And on that note, we'll leave you to ponder those possibilities. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating world of the AutoLabe Model 550S.